The Silent Woods. It all began on an autumn evening when a young photographer named Jake decided to venture into the remote forest in search of rare shots. The Silent Woods, as the locals called it, was infamous for its dense trees, so tightly intertwined that sunlight barely reached the ground. People said the forest attracted misfortune, and those who wandered too far never returned. Jake didn't believe in old tales. He was a rational man, guided by science and logic. Passing a weathered sign with the faint words, "Do not enter," he ventured deeper into the woods. An hour into his journey, Jake noticed something unsettling. Complete silence. No bird songs, no rustling leaves. Only his own footsteps echoed in the void. The forest seemed alive, as if it was breathing and watching him. Jake pulled out his camera and began shooting. Through the lens, he caught a shadow flitting past. Spinning around, he found nothing. "Just a trick of the light," he muttered under his breath. The further he walked, the stranger the trees became. Their trunks bent at impossible angles, and their roots clawed at the path, almost as if trying to snare him. Suddenly, he tripped and fell. As he stood up, his eyes landed on an object on the ground. A doll. Its hollow eyes seemed filled with malice. Someone must have lost it, Jake reasoned, slipping the doll into his backpack. Not long after, he stumbled upon the ruins of a wooden house. The walls were covered in mold, and the windows were boarded up from the inside. A rusty lock hung on the door, but it creaked open as soon as Jake touched it. Inside, it was dark and damp. Yellowed newspapers littered the floor. One headline caught his eye: "Children disappear in the Silent Woods." Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him. Jake jumped, but the lock clicked into place on its own. That's when he heard it, a child's laughter echoing through the room. But no one was there. "Is someone here?" he called out. Only silence replied. Switching on his flashlight, Jake swept the beam across the far corner of the room. There, standing in the shadows, was a woman in old-fashioned clothing. A veil obscured her face, but her features were faintly visible, distorted, as if drawn and erased 100 times. "You took my doll," she whispered. Jake stumbled backward, dropping his flashlight. The woman stepped closer, her face fully emerging into the light. It wasn't a face at all, but a writhing mass of snakes and decaying flesh. He ran to the door and yanked at it, but it wouldn't budge. Desperately, he turned to the window, trying to smash it, but the wooden planks held firm. "You belong here now," the voice murmured from behind him. Turning around, he saw shadows closing in. Among them were children with empty, lifeless eyes, and at their center stood the woman holding his camera. "You are part of the woods now," she said, as the shadows consumed him. A week later, Jake's camera was found in the town nearby. The last photo showed a figure resembling Jake, standing in the depths of the forest. His face was pale and expressionless, as if drained of all life. Since then, the forest has remained silent, waiting for its next victim. Several months had passed since Jake's disappearance, but the legends of the Silent Woods began to spread anew. Young journalists, bloggers, and urban explorers were drawn to the mysterious forest, eager to uncover its secrets. One of them was Emma, a photography student fascinated by supernatural stories. She came across the news about Jake's found camera and felt an inexplicable pull toward the place. Emma decided she couldn't pass up the opportunity. Armed with her camera, flashlight, and warm clothing, she set out for the forest's edge. Locals tried to stop her, warning her of the grim fates that had befallen past adventurers, but she paid no attention. As soon as she stepped beyond the "Do Not Enter" sign, she felt the air shift. It became heavier, denser, as if the forest itself resisted her presence. Emma took photos almost every step of the way. She noticed something odd in every shot. The trees seemed to move, and the sky darkened faster in the pictures than in reality. After about an hour, she stumbled upon the old house, the very one where Jake had met his end. The house looked even more abandoned than in Jake's photographs. The door was slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. For a moment, fear gripped Emma, but curiosity won out. Inside, it was dark and eerily quiet. Emma switched on her flashlight and began exploring. The floor was littered with the same yellowed newspapers seen in Jake's photos, though the headlines were now almost illegible. The walls were marked with strange scratches, as if clawed by something inhuman. Then Emma heard it, a faint whisper, like the voice of a child calling her name. "Who's there?" she called out loudly, trying to sound brave. A soft laugh answered her, echoing just behind her. Emma spun around, but no one was there. On the floor among the newspapers lay a doll. It was dusty, but its eyes gleamed strangely in the flashlight's beam. Emma picked it up and immediately felt the air in the house grow colder. The doll was light but felt unnervingly alive. Its eyes were black and bottomless, as if they could swallow her soul. "What kind of nonsense is this?" Emma muttered, trying to calm herself. But as soon as she stuffed the doll into her backpack, the whispering grew louder. Now it was everywhere, as if the walls themselves were speaking. Emma ran out of the house, but the darkness had thickened, leaving her disoriented. The forest no longer looked ordinary. The trees seemed twisted and deformed, their branches like skeletal fingers. Suddenly she saw them, a group of children standing silently, their eyes as empty as the doll's. "Are you lost?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. The children didn't respond, but one of them raised a hand and pointed to her backpack. "She wants it back," the boy said. "Who is she?" Emma asked, though she knew the answer wouldn't comfort her. The children slowly parted, and from their midst emerged a veiled woman. "You took her," the woman said, gesturing toward the backpack. I I just found it," Emma stammered, her legs frozen in fear. "It's hers!" The woman's voice grew louder and sharper. "Those who take it become part of the forest." Emma knew she had to run, but her body wouldn't move. Suddenly, she remembered her camera. "Maybe this can help," she thought. She raised her camera and took a photo of the woman. In that instant, the figure let out a piercing scream, as if the flash of light had burned her. "You dare!" the woman shrieked, and the forest began to shift. Emma realized she had a chance. Despite her trembling hands, she continued snapping photos. Each shot forced the woman and the children to retreat, but the forest itself seemed to close in, trying to trap her. When she took her final photo, the flash was so bright it engulfed everything around her. Emma woke up at the edge of the forest. Her backpack was empty. The doll was gone. Back at home, Emma developed the photos. Each one showed scenes from the past, children's faces, their screams, and the distorted visage of the veiled woman. In the last photo, Emma saw herself standing at the house's threshold, her eyes hollow and lifeless. Since that day, Emma never left her house. She heard whispers even in her room, and in her mirror's reflection, she sometimes glimpsed the veiled woman watching her silently. The silent woods never lets go of those who dare to step into its embrace. The forest is alive, waiting, and it always takes back what belongs to it.